All right, welcome back to the Board of Supervisors meeting. We are on item 16.
Item 16, informational item, Public Works, receive a presentation on the State Route 4 Wagon Trail Phase 1 project.
Craig, welcome.
Hey,
Take it away.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the board. It's been since May that the board's had a comprehensive update on the Wagon Trail project. So I thought I should start this morning just kind of hitting the high points of where we are. And I know the public hasn't heard this in some time as well. So I think it's brief but hopefully informative for you and the public. I'm going to start with a graphic called just project status. And let me see if they can. Starting from the left to the right, that'd be from the west to the east. You'll see highlighted the first 2 miles of the Wagon Trail project that is in full service, as we speak. So 2/3 of the 3-mile main line is now in service. You'll notice in yellow, about midway, you can see Hunt Road, which right now is being connected. You get people coming on Hunt Road, take a turn onto the old highway, where they used to get right onto the highway, and that brings them to the main line today. But the plan is, and it's partially graded into place, is the new connection Hunt Road, at Highway 4, much closer to Copperopolis. So that's still under construction. Once you get up near the top of this graphic, you can see different colorization where some work has been underway. This Pool Station Road, where it comes in right now. There'll be some adjustments made at Pool Station Road connection when we start to bring this last section of the new highway online. To the immediate east of Pool Station Road, that intersection is an area that's called Cut 5, and you'll see some pictures of that, and that's where a lot of the dirt is being generated right now. As you continue on, you hit a big area of yellow, and that is the area where we have that MSC wall and the channelization that's being created for Nassau Creek. Beyond that, you can see that's the very last segment of what will become the new main line for Highway 4. Basically, it's at rough grade, now. The real controlling factor, is that MSC wall and creek channelization, area. So just big picture, you can see again 2/3 of this thing is being used right now, and the most controlling feature here is the MSC wall construction. So with the help of friends, we've been able to come up with a 2-minute flyover of this 3-mile route, so you can actually see it from a drone. I'll pause it in just a couple locations, but this starts near the Bonanza Mine area, and then heads eastward. So I'll just go ahead and set this off. So you can see us transitioning onto the new highway. You can see that this is elevated. Some of that was both just for the general grade desired for the road, but also we were able to hide some of the special environmental areas have been covered with fill in that area. You continue up, you have Tuscarnia property on either side. You'll be coming up to an area where they have, I'll just let us get there. Again, if you only drive this fast, there's a tunnel for their cattle, go from one side to the other. Now you can see Highway 4 on that upper left corner. That's the old Highway 4. That's that Hunt Road traffic that's coming in right now to the temporary connection with the new main line. And I'm going to pause this in just a moment when we get to Pool Station Road. Okay, I'm pausing here because this is one area that is currently designed will have to be raised a couple feet. to connect at the grade, desired grade, planned grade for the new highway. I'm going to continue on immediately following this eastward is what we call the Cut 5 area. And it's just coming to view on the right there. So right now, this area, you can tell it's already been disturbed. This is where there's significant cut occurring in this area to lower it down and gain the desired grade in that area, and also to generate fill in other areas of the project. And you'll see in another video where they're actually taking material from this area and then taking it to the MSE wall area. So just go a little bit further. And then you can see this will be probably the greatest logistical feat when the day comes where we have to connect both sides of the new road segment, where we're going to have to divert traffic. They're figuring out how best to do that so they could accomplish the grading that will actually connect these two sides, and that'll become the new main line of the highway. Continuing on, and this was shot about a month ago, so it's kind of good to see this a month ago. We're coming up to the MSE wall area. This is one of those environmental areas that we want to protect. This is where the wall is going to go. You can see an excavator working in this area, and that's a pool of water. And that's something that from the first day first week I was here, I went down and saw this area with Robert Pattinger, and you could see them dealing with spring water all over the site, having to create pools where they could pump it out, spray it. And it's just an area that just has ongoing, water challenges, but they persevere. You're seeing just off to the side, at the very top here, you've got equipment starting to build the beginning of a footing where they're going to tow a slope, where they're going to build up that side of the wall area to achieve the grade of where the road's going to go right along this general area where the wall is, and then cut back into the new road. This road to the right that you're seeing, that's just a construction road at this time. So as you get out of this area, then you're back onto what will be the ultimate, main line. This is heading towards the Appaloosa area. And there you can see where the new road is intended to be located. There's Appaloosa coming in. And then we'll let this run just a little bit more. And I think you're all very familiar with the Cherokee Bridge project that Caltrans took on as a separate but complementary project to Wagon Trail. There's the new bridge. You can see the width of that new bridge compared to the width of the existing one with the blacktop. So it's about twice as wide, so a much safer bridge. We'll talk about this just briefly. Well, I'll just mention it now that with the extended construction period on Wagon Trail, Caltrans is going to just go ahead and finish this project, tie it back into either side of the bridge. Will not go all the way as originally intended, but they need to get the work done and let the contractor move on. So I'll let this just run out on the main line, and then you're going to see just a quick segment on Hunt Road. So that's what you just saw below was Highway 4, and now you can see the graded area in here where the Hunt Road is coming back to the new highway alignment. Here you can also see some cuts that are occurring in there. So there's been a lot of dirt movement in that area. There is some storage of dirt in this area as well that will need to be cleaned up before this area is finalized. And then this shows how Hunt Road coming in at the top here, and this is where it will ultimately come this way, and then that way the old highway alignment can be rescinded and torn up. So that is just a quick flyover. I mentioned Cut 5. This is the area that's just east of Pool Station Road. You can see here these cars on the left are on the existing highway, and you can see that goes down, down, down. You can barely make out just some dust occurring. The grade, it just gives you an idea just how steep the grade is, and yet you can see a vehicle parked here on the left, and that's where the grade of the new road basically is going to come in. But just this will be a much quicker video, but just showing this is their largest piece of equipment out there, that D11 dozer, and then just going ahead and loading up trucks. And so right now that's where the dirt is coming from, and then you'll see in a moment where it is going. Okay, so this is going to pick up on the eastern side of the MSC wall area, and this is the dirt that you just saw being loaded on one side of the highway and brought over. And there's been a lot of this activity in the last month. This area that he's driving on right now didn't exist in that aerial view that I showed you before. They're filling it up, getting it close to grade, as close to the MSC wall area as they can. And you can see the MSC wall in the background. I have some close-up pictures that we'll show you in a second. Okay. So now what you're looking at is actually, this is at the bottom of what is going to be the new wall in this area. The concrete that you see there is a leveling pad. That's where they're going to start putting the blocks on. Between that leveling pad and then the slope that you see on the other side, it's between those areas. That's where they're going to create the channel that allows the water from Nassau Creek to travel behind that wall in its own channel, concrete channel, and then it'll come down the wall, and then somewhere where you can see the cursor up there, somewhere in that area is where it'll cut back and go back into the native channel. But they have to get it between that protected area and the MSC wall. And right now, that's the most important thing that absolutely has to happen because winter is coming, and we have to get this part done. I thought I'd just be interested. You can see on this far end, I'm circling a little point, and that is the low point of this operation right now. That's what it looks like close up. So the water challenges from springs in that area continue to be a challenge. That's just basically a large French drain that's collecting that stuff and taking it away. And our construction manager is saying that's operating perfectly the way it's supposed to get rid of that water. And then this is just, again, a site, a view, the MSC wall site. And again, just about where this piece of equipment is right now. From there, the road's going to go right past that wall, so that back where that the leveling pad is, imagine that wall 30 foot higher. That's going to become the point where the road comes up to and then continues across to connect to the other main line. So this is where the real action is. This is what's controlling the pace at which we can finish this thing. This is going to take months to complete. So what's the major work yet to be completed? I kind of touched on this. First is that concrete channel for Nassau Creek, and then the removal of the temporary diversion pipes and things that we put in place at the end of winter. But if winter starts, it may be able to handle it for a short time, but if you get into full-on winter, we've got to have that new cement channel in place. The next thing, again, is the MSC wall, complementary. They have to construct them with one another, staged properly. We have the new Hunt Road connection at Highway 4. It needs to be done. That can be done independently of this other work. And then the last thing will be, once the wall is done, the road's brought up to grade, then it can be paved off. The last thing will be, switching the traffic to the new highway segment between Pool Station Road and Appaloosa. As far as what drivers can expect in the near term, right now, the only thing that we're just making sure that they are aware that those trucks are going to continue to haul dirt across, the highway. That seems to be going on without any accidents right now. But just want to make sure people are careful in that area so we don't have any accidents. Funding, we've been able to get everyone up to speed on their billing. So what you have is a funding table that you've seen parts of before. This has all of our expenses that either have been paid or incurred, but not paid yet, all the way through the month of July. The only exceptions to that, I think we have one billing outstanding for the tribe for July monitoring, for Dokken for their engineering, and there's one pay estimate that's missing for bid work from Sukut. But otherwise, this includes everything. And what this shows is that we're about 41% expended, remaining. So we're about 59% expended, 41% left. If you were to treat right away as basically encumbered, because it is set aside just for that, there's reasons for the sizing of that amount that's remaining. If you were to show that as incurred as well, that would take it down to about 36% balance remaining. So you can tell we're getting closer, now, as we should, because we're looking at 2/3 of the main line is online, and a lot of the remaining third is constructed or well underway. Now this does represent the numbers that are in the budget. So you can see all the various state funding sources there with STIP, SB1, SHOP, RSTP from the COG, but it shows a little over $13.7 million, which is 100% of what is available in our road impact mitigation fund. So these reflect the numbers that are in the unspent, unobligated amount of the project has been budgeted, but in coordination with this project total that you're seeing here. As far as anticipated completion, the Nassau Creek Channel, they hope to be out of there by November. They may need to get permit extensions to be in there, but we definitely need to get them out of that channel, get that concrete channel in place and get that back water so that they can flow back into the native channel. The MSC wall, based on the last schedule that we have, would not be completed until April. And that's a process that I do have, by the way, have Robert Pattinger here, Deputy Public Works Director, and also have Howard Zabel, our project manager, is online and can speak to this as well. But it will take several months to go through the process of putting in the blocks and then putting in your fill. This is a different type of wall system that I'm familiar with, but it has a very particular way that it has to be constructed. But ultimately, we hope to see a shift to the final segment of the new Highway 4 alignment in June of '25, and I hope to then deal with the incidentals after that in short order. So anyway, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So the project is well underway to being completed, but all focus is really on that MSC wall and channel area. Do you have any questions?
Questions from the board? Martin?
Craig, thank you. I just had one quick question. Could you remind me why we have to do the new Hunt Road connection as opposed to the way they're accessing it right now?
It's just part of what was part of the original design approved by Caltrans. I know Caltrans, I wasn't there when they made that decision, but I know Caltrans likes to rescind their old highways as quickly as possible. For the people that commute on that road, it's going to be a much shorter connection, to and from, than having to backtrack. And then also the distance between the Pool Station intersection and Hunt, as it is today, is closer than what the traffic engineers like. I mean, I could have been in that conversation. I'm sure that all this comes into play, and they'd like to, get it constructed the way that it is planned.
Thank you.
Craig, I had a quick question. I noticed in the RIM that we've obviously committed all our RIM, but we're putting in this budget anticipated RIM fees. Is that correct?
Correct.
Get to the 13.7, because I think we got 13.2 roughly.
Right. So there's about $500,000 of projected income for this fiscal year that we're in right now would be part of that.
We feel confident about that?
I've checked it with both people that work most closely with it, and they feel that's legitimate.
Okay, because that's all we got.
Exactly.
Gary?
Yeah, my questions have to do with in your flyover thing that I was watching and looking at. You say it's a month old, but I'm concerned about east of the wall, going towards Appaloosa Road and the bridge that Caltrans put in.
Right.
None of that is near the wall. Yet on the video, there wasn't anybody even working on it. It was partially graded.
Yeah.
And then it stopped, and then nobody's working there at all. It's just like sitting there. And instead of us constructing all east up to the wall and make sure that's all done and connecting to that bridge that we were supposed to connect to, it's just sitting there. It's like, why are we just focused completely on the wall? Why don't we have crews working on both the west end or Hunt Road, finishing all of that off, and then on the east end and finishing all that off, so all we have is the wall left. And once that's done, we just connect it up, instead of waiting all the way till April or whatever to finish it off in June. I'm not sure what the schedule and the construction part of that is not happening.
Yeah. Well, I think I did a disservice by putting so much emphasis on the wall area, because that's the most important controlling feature right now. But there is work happening. Actually, I just drove down there Monday when I was coming into work to see, and they actually were actively working on the Appaloosa side, starting to clear out stuff, and so there's some activity there.
Starting. That's my concern, though, Craig. They're just starting. That bridge has been completed by Caltrans since way earlier this year. That's my concern. Why are we just starting on it? Why is it not Unico as a construction manager and Dewberry having Sukut do their job and complete the sections instead of just whenever they feel like working on it? It seems like whatever they want to do, they're allowed to do, and the construction management portion of it and the project management portion of it isn't even, okay, just do whatever you want. I have concerns about it, even being done in June. We've been told so many different things that just haven't, and now I'm looking at it, and it doesn't seem like there's much construction management going on.
Okay.
And I know you're new to it, you're just walking into it, so I'm not dumping all this on you.
Yeah.
Howard's here, but Howard, Howard, are you online?
I'm here. Can you
I don't
hear me?
recognize you. What is that? You haven't shaved. Are you going to shave when this job's complete? Is that?
Pretty much, yes. It's a new look. I apologize for not being able to be there in person, but Supervisor Tofanelli, to your point, it's a very good question. What it comes down to is, you heard Craig talk about the controlling operation, the wall in that area is a controlling operation. So in essence, what that means is even if they were to do work further to the east, in the Appaloosa area, it would not, the project would not finish any quicker. So the focus when managing a project, you have to focus on the controlling operation or operations, and that's the work that, if delayed, will cause delay to the project. And so essentially the durations for that work further to the east that you're referring to are shorter. They'll be, and they will start in a way to where that, that will not be the controlling operation. If Sukut was working down there, we'd still wind up in the same place for completion.
I'm not sure I agree with that scenario, but Howard, being in construction myself, we're focusing on one section instead of completing the rest of it. And so that may be controlling, but you don't know if the other section, because you haven't done much work there, is going to be another controlling section. And then you're going to be telling us in June, well, we didn't anticipate, we just started working on it, and then we found this, so now it's going to take over, and we won't be able, because we got to deal with this. Instead of dealing with it now and all the time that we should have, and just completing it and constructing it, so when we get to the wall, we know we've already dealt with that. We're not putting it off. It just seems like you're putting it off. And in construction, I just don't, I've never been on a job where you put certain sections off. If you could get to it and construct it, excuse me, you construct it. But where we're at. And so we don't even know, again, when we get to, they start grading that and getting to that section and connecting to that bridge, we know that's an area because there's a creek, that's why there's a bridge there. We don't know what's going to happen, but yet we're going to wait till the end to determine, okay, well, oh, we got another problem. Instead of construction it now.
That's something we had, I'm just sharing with you kind of the general approach of scheduling a job and, and resources. Also, just availability of resources in general. But your point is well taken. I do understand the concern, and I will go back to the construction management team, and we'll have that discussion, and with Sukut as well, and see if that makes sense. And I guess the way I'm looking at it is when does it make the most sense to start that? And to your point, understood. You don't want to wait to where you're doing something where that winds up driving, where that becomes a controlling operation.
Thank you, Howard.
If my recollection is correct, I think when it comes to the Hunt Road, unless we were to tell them, don't, their plan is to try to get that finished and paved off before wet weather comes in, because that stands all by itself. It just needs to be finished, paved, and it can be put into service. So I believe that's the plan, there, but we can double check with that at this week's meeting.
Do we have, we're looking at what we're being told here and presented about the Nassau Creek Channel being completed November 2024, the wall in April 2025, and then the finishing segment and opening it up in June of 2025. Is there a schedule? Is there an actual schedule? Do we have scheduling and not only a weekly scheduling, but a monthly schedule, and then having weekly meetings to make sure where we're at on the schedule to meet these dates?
So I can answer that or speak to that a little bit, Supervisor Tofanelli. So the dates that Craig shared with you, those are our scheduled projections. So there are a couple of different schedules. There's the contractual schedule for working days that the contractor is obligated to update monthly. There are look-ahead schedules that are updated weekly. Those are shared Thursday mornings with the weekly construction meetings with the project team. There is also a project completion schedule that the CM team has developed to project when we think this job is going to finish. So back to the first schedule that I mentioned, the contractor, the contractual schedules and the monthly updates. The contractor, I think, as you've been told previously, is very far behind on those contractual, on that contractual commitment. There are significant payment withholds being administered until they get those caught up. I will say that in the last month, they've made a lot of progress. We have 3 updates submitted and approved. So they're making progress. They are still 10 months behind, which is unacceptable, but they're working on it. And again, we're administering payment withholds. We put together a projection to come up with that June date based on Sukut's original CPM schedule and the durations and the logic, the activity logic in that. And what we did was we plugged in the start date of when we started the channel work. And so that's where we are with that. It's not the official schedule. It's our best projection. It's better than nothing. Nothing is not acceptable. So it's the best we can do. And what the team needs to do on that is keep that updated to make sure that we're staying on track with that projection. And hopefully here over the course of the next couple months, Sukut gets caught up on the official schedules. And our sense on that is if we're looking at things correctly, that should match what we are estimating or projecting.
So my question,
Yeah, please.
you talk about 10 months behind on their schedule. Can you explain 10 months behind? What are you talking about? What they've already done for the last 10 months or 10 months projected ahead?
For their official schedule, we are on the, I think the September 23 update right now.
Okay.
Maybe the October, I can't recall exactly where. So we had a meeting with the contractor scheduler, with the CM team scheduler, and these are both professional schedulers on both sides. We had a meeting, a month or 6 weeks ago it was, here's the approach, here's what's needed, and they have made a lot of progress. But they are, when I say 10 months behind, it's their official schedule updates.
Okay. All right.
Reflect work that was 10 months ago.
I just wanted to get that clarified.
Sure.
Thank you. Because behind may mean one thing or another thing. I just wanted to get it. Thank you.
Right, it doesn't, I understood. When I say behind, it's not the work, it's the schedule update, the actual schedule update itself.
I've made most of my comments in prior meetings, so I'll hold those. You have an item here on this funding summary of RSTP COG, but there's an asterisk. What is the purpose of that asterisk, and what is that telling us? I didn't find the asterisk in the notes.
Do you remember?
It's on the funding by source, RSTP COG asterisk. I always notice asterisk, so what does it mean?
Yeah, I don't know if you remember.
That was funding that was, I believe, associated with, that came from the Council of Governments, and they passed it on. I believe that, I'm going to say it's the COVID funding, but I'm not exactly sure. I don't remember anymore. There was an explanation on the...
We had $500,000 of unscheduled RSTP funds, and there wasn't a project, so we gave it to
That's
this project.
correct.
But with an asterisk, that's usually a footnote,
Right.
you know, and you just define where that money came from, but what does the asterisk mean? What's the footnote?
Just to give the explanation that Supervisor Tofanelli remembered about where that money came from.
I apologize. I cut and pasted this from a broader spreadsheet, just
Okay.
the summary, and I didn't catch that, or I would have either left the footnote or taken the asterisk off.
What is we have here funding summary, and we have lots of stuff, and it comes out, looks good, but what is the total cost of the project as it stands today?
Well, we're projecting the 53 million. What's been incurred, cost incurred, is just over 31 million.
You're projecting 53 million?
Correct.
Okay.
And sorry, just to weigh in, I just got a message that, that you're correct, Mr. Pedro, it was a cut and paste, and the little asterisk says that it was approved by the COG board. That's the note.
Any other questions from the board? Seeing none, any questions from the public? Thank you, Craig. You've got the next item also. 17.
Item 17, Agreement Public Works, authorize the interim Director of Public Works to execute contract change order 60-01 to contract 12002103 with Sukut Construction LLC in the amount of $2,100,000.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, before you for your consideration is a change order, a supplement. It's a change order 60. That was approved back in March of this year. It was covering an area that's basically on either side of the MSC Wall area, as well as the Pool Station and Hunt Road areas. That originally called for 90,000 cubic yards of material that was estimated, that still remained to be moved at an estimated cost of $855,000. I want to pause here and say, where did that estimate, come from? My understanding has been once we started running into all these various cultural areas that we had to avoid, it interrupted the normal flow of the planned dirt work on this job. So with different areas that as they were worked on, individual change orders were approved, to deal with the dirt work. This 855, and again, Howard can speak to this surely better than I, but he went back and looked at what the average cost per cubic yard was when you looked at all of those prior T&M jobs to move dirt, and it came in at around $14 a square foot, somewhere in there. If you apply that to the 90,000, and that's where the $855,000 estimate came from. Not unreasonable. Looking at past history on this job, that's where the 855 came from. But nevertheless, as we sit here today, that we have, in fact, approximately 29,000 cubic yards of road excavation that has been completed between mid-March and July at an estimated cost of $1,992,000. And there's a chart that summarizes each of those months, the cubic yards and the costs that are estimated costs. And then on attachment 3, there's a description of the type of complex earthwork that's been going on this project, and lists the major excavation activities undertaken of each of those months. Why wasn't the county informed about this overrun sooner? One of the problems that we've had in general with the contractor is, it's the strangest thing, they just don't bill timely. And that's a rarity in my experience. Usually a contractor wants to bill as quickly as they can. That has not happened, so we did not have billing information to judge where we were in relation to the $855,000. So the project team didn't realize that costs were exceeding the $855,000 budget cap until estimates were started to be prepared by Unico. And I've provided information about how those estimates are prepared. They're still estimates, but they're thoughtful in the sense that we have had information on who was working for Unico on this work, what equipment was being worked with on this job. And when they took the hours for labor, hours for various equipment, they applied their certified payroll wages to the labor hours and took the Caltrans equipment rates to the equipment. And that's where the estimates came from. How much more roadway excavation will be needed between now and the end of the project? If you do the math of the 90,000 cubic yards we expected originally, less the 29,000, that leaves around 61,000 left from the original estimate. In talking with Howard even this morning about this, there is an additional 20,000 cubic yards that's still a question that they're looking at. I think I erred in tying it to the wall. There is about 20,000 cubic yards of material that is select material. It's part of the construction of this particular wall. You can't just have regular dirt. It has to meet certain criteria so it compacts properly and it will do what it needs to do structurally. And again, Howard can speak to this better, but that was included in the cost of the wall. And yet, having said that, there's still an issue of again, just happens to be about 20,000 cubic yards of material that's still at question. If indeed we do have another 20,000 of cubic yards, add that to your 61,000 that was not moved previously, that would leave us 81,000 cubic yards. It still needs to be moved between now and the end of the project. So those projections are still being refined. And maybe I'm going to pause here, and Howard, can you clean up what I just said or add anything on that point?
Sure. Thanks, Craig. So just a couple of quick points. The $14, I think you mentioned a square foot. That's the number is $14.50 a cubic yard for the roadway X. So just to clarify that. All the other information was correct, based on 90,000 cubic yards of material. As far as the 20,000 yards goes, just a couple of clarifications on that. I do want to let you all know that the select structure backfill, that is, in round numbers, it's about 20,000 yards, maybe a little bit less. That was part of the price. That was part of that $6 million price for the MSC wall, and that's for furnishing and importing new material, placing, backfilling, compacting, all that. The additional 20,000 that Craig is speaking to, it's a different classification. That's the roadway excavation, right? So that's the roadway excavation is what we're paying for at time and materials. And Craig is correct that we're analyzing that a bit further because it's not, the case isn't that there's an extra 20,000 yards emerged. What it is there's 20,000 yards, that bid item or that work involves cutting and filling. And so essentially there was 20,000 yards of material that was going to be placed in that area where the MSC wall now is, in that area where the select structure backfill is now going to occupy. So essentially that 20,000 yards has to go elsewhere on the project or be lost on the project. That is something that the project team is looking on where, and we've been looking at that for several months, where to fatten up slopes to lose that additional material. So I wouldn't necessarily say that there will be there'll be some extra costs, but it's not, the extra is not the same type of work, the same extent of work as the roadway X's on the project.
Okay, well, let me continue on there real quick. So what is the revised total cost for the roadway excavation contemplated under this, under CCO 60? Already mentioned the $1,992,000 for the work performed between mid-March and July 20. Again, these are estimates, not bills yet. Then we would project another $1,940,000 for the work to be performed between now and the end of the project. So combined total could be as high as $3.9 million. You subtract that $855 original budget from that, and that leaves a potential net increase of $3,077,000, or 3.1 rounded. Given that the project team is still refining these estimates, it's recommended that your board authorize myself to execute CCO 60-01, the supplement, in the amount of $2.1 million. That should cover Sukut's costs through the end of September, and then staff would return to your board at its September 24th meeting with an update and recommendation on a supplement number 2 that would take us to the end of the project. And that's being done purposefully because we're hoping to have better information. One set of estimates will have some actual dollars that we're dealing with, actual bills that our project team can go through and analyze and validate. We also anticipate that the work is going to decrease or be of a less expensive nature, as Howard was just speaking to. That'll give us extra time to look at all those things and come back with as thoughtful of a recommendation for the remainder of this dirt work. So I've given you the math of how we arrived at the 2.1. So that's what I'm recommending at this time, is just supplement 1 to make sure we have enough to get through September. It could get us further, but I would hold off on going for the full amount until we have, I'd like to see better numbers, actual bills that we can analyze as opposed to the estimates. But right now we do have a contractor out there who's working not covered by the change order, and would suggest that we don't want them to stop. Right now is the absolute worst time. They've got to continue to get out of that creek channel, get that cement channelization in place, and get that wall, going up. The winter's coming, and we got to get out of that, get out of that area. So maybe we missed it in tracking this properly up to that 855, but now we know we have a contractor doing work on our behalf in a very sensitive area. So the financing, mentioned that this is the projections I put in the status report. Those are the numbers that the FY 24-25 fiscal year final budget is based upon. So I've worked with CEO Hitchcock and making sure that is in there. And we just recommend that your board grant approval of this change order, authorizing me to sign it.
Questions from the board? Gary, you want to start?
They had a change order. They have a change order right now. They had a change order for $855,000 for 90,000 cubic yards. That was their change order. How we have a project manager and a construction manager come back and tell us that they had no idea just because Sukut didn't bill is just crazy to me. Do we not have people out there on foot watching what's going on and not seeing it? When Sukut hit $855,000, they never came forward and said, hey, we're at the end of our change order. What do you want us to do? Sukut's running this whole project and has run this project. Now we're supposed to come up with another 1.9 million or whatever, it's 2.1 million minus the 855, or excuse me, 1.992 plus 970 minus the 855, or $2.1 million, when they didn't have direction to do it. They hit their top of their change order. They just kept on working, and now they expect to give us a bill, and this is, oh, by the way, this is what it is. And then we're supposed to believe this 970 is going to get through August and September, when the 855 didn't even get through a third of the cubic yards that they were supposed to do for that 855. So I don't know how I'm going to vote for this and justify my vote to the public based on all the figures and everything that's coming to us and presented to us. And in fact, it even says we're still refining these estimates. What does that mean? This is just throwing a number out there saying, okay, we need another 970, but it could be the same way. We come back and Sukut did another 2 million over the 970, and we still have 50 cubic yards to move. There's not, if they're going to accept a change order, then the change order is the change order. And they need to be on top of it themselves, not us. But we do have project managers and construction managers that should be on top of it, have somebody out there every day just to find the amount of equipment, the amount of men and hours that are being worked, so they can have somewhat of an estimate for this. When we get near the $970,000 that you're asking for to get us through, so we don't run into this situation again. It's blaming it on Sukut. You're just saying that, well, they didn't turn any billing into us, so we had no idea. How are you managing? How is that management?
You have your concerns and your frustration are completely legitimate. I wouldn't disagree with any. If I could, a few more thoughts to maybe put this into context. So, we wrote a time and materials or force count change order for $855,000. It was based on the historical cost, force count cost of the dirt to that point. That was the best information we had. That's how we came up with that budget. The way that it's supposed to work is the contractor bills as they go. They can bill one day at a time if they want. For reasons I don't think I understand, and I don't think I ever will, their billings are very, very delayed. And so it's a legitimate question to say, why didn't you know about this? Because we should have. The project team should have. When I look back on the history, and just for context, the $1.992 million, that is an estimate of that, and that's through July 20th. We have only received and approved bills through April 20th. The bills received through April 20th, they billed $360,000 in round numbers. The agreed amount was $262,000. So about a third of it was knocked down. So the CM team agreed to $262. 2 weeks ago, the CM team received billings from April 20th to May 20th in the amount of about $850,000. The CM team has placed a value on that so far of about $685,000. So what we've seen for the two packets of invoices so far is, what we feel the entitlement is a bit less than what they're billing. These are detailed packets. They take a while to review. The way that it went was week after week. After we executed CCO 60, we asked where their billings are, and each week it was, we'll have something next week, and then next week it was the next week. So that went on for 4 to 6 weeks. We got to about the middle of June, and I told, I told Unico, we need to know where we're at, because in my mind, I need to know where we're at. So you need to do an estimate. We don't have their bills yet, but we do, since we do track hours, labor, equipment, materials every day, we need an estimate of where we are. That estimate took, another 4+ weeks to produce, and essentially that leads us to where we are now. So it's not how it hasn't gone how it should have. We should have known earlier, and I will say, on all ends, right? Everybody should have been more on top of it. So we had the information sooner. However, I will say that having the information sooner, it would have given your board the opportunity to digest that, more opportunity, and think about the implications. But it would not have changed the final outcome. The dollars either that they have submitted or the dollars that we have agreed to date.
Howard, I'm not so sure about that, but let me, where's the 970,000 coming from? Based on the other one was 14.5. What's the 970? What are you basing that off of?
I'm not sure I'm not following the 970.
970,000 estimated cost for August and September work.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. So that is so what we asked the CM team to do was go through, during this exercise of estimating, what are we looking at? It's based on an average daily cost, an estimated average daily cost of $25,000 a day. So that's where that comes from. It's a rough estimate. As Craig mentioned, our thought process is the dirt work from this point moving forward. We think it will be much less costly. If you look at the unit price for comparison's sake, our change order is based on an absolute unit cost of $14.50 a cubic yard. If you look at the 1.992, 29,000, that's just under $70 a cubic yard.
That's correct.
4 3/4 times as expensive. Some of the reasons for that, there was rock, there was blasting, there was wet grade out of the starting gate in the beginning of the spring, so unsuitable subgrade. There were the water issues, the high groundwater at the wall that Craig spoke of. So all those things are wrapped into that collectively, and I think those issues would have been extras regardless of whether or not all the roadway X was time and materials. It just, given the situation where we are on the job with this large amount of essentially T&M work, it really makes it makes it sting, a lot to have those additional issues come up.
Can you tell me what the original bid from Sukut was for this wall?
For the wall was
For the wall and all the work.
it was $6,014,000.
Excuse me?
$6,014,000.
No, they're original.
For the
It
wall.
was like
for the
10. It
wall?
was like 10 million, wasn't it?
The original. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. It was about 10 million. Yes.
And so I'm looking at this, and their change orders are totaling about 4 million, plus the 6 million they got for that change order. We're looking at, Here's where I'm at. In order for me to vote for this, I need some numbers, because we've voted on so much things that nothing, and been told so many things, and nothing since back in February, that it's just not, there hasn't been anything correct. First off, the 970, Somebody needs to, if we do this change order, Sukut and Unico, when they get to 970 and they're not done, stop.
Right.
That's the extent of the change order, what's left, if anything is left. Okay, they can't go past the change order and expect to get paid for it. That's not in the contract, that's not what the change order.
You're absolutely correct. I'm very surprised that Sukut hasn't brought this up. It is very surprising. That's their job as a contractor to know exactly where they are. It's our job as well to know roughly where we are. And it just, like I said, there was a lag in this. It's not acceptable at any level. Look, I understand the extreme frustration at this situation. The money, it has to be managed more closely, and I think it is. I think it is for where we are right now. Should not have taken this long, but it did, and I do apologize for that.
One last quick question. This 970,000 for August and September.
Right.
That number, was Sukut involved in any way in coming to that number?
They were not. They were not. What that number comes from, we took the tentative work agreements, so every day for the time and materials work, Unico's inspector in the field gets with Sukut's foreman, and here's the labor and equipment and any materials, usually it's not materials for roadway acts, right? Labor and equipment, they agree on hours, and they sign what's called a tentative work agreement. That tentative work agreement, it's from that Sukut creates extra work bills. So right now, we are not waiting for Sukut's extra work bills. We are preparing estimates of the extra work agreed to in the field with those tentative work agreements. So that is something, and that's why, back at I think it was the end of June, something like that, where I got with, or began July with Sukut with Unico. It's like, yeah, we need to be doing this. We're not getting these bills in a timely manner. We need to know where we are to avoid a fire drill and a surprise, like this. So I agree. I totally agree with what you're saying.
All right, thank you, Howard.
Supervisor Huberty?
To me, Howard, it just feels like the tail wagging the dog. And these projections, unless Sukut actually sticks to it, I don't see how they're going to hold anyway. And it doesn't seem like anybody's holding Sukut accountable, and I don't know how to do that. But it just seems like, again, 3 or 4 months down the road, there'll be another set of issues. How do we stop it?
So that's a great question, Supervisor Huberty. It is a great question. The thing to keep in mind for this is with the time and materials work, the force account work, it is at the owner's direction. So essentially, it's at the CM's direction. So the CM is, so what does that mean? We can speak to, labor and equipment that's on the project, and the team is looking at those things. So one of the big drivers for this cost is that big bulldozer that Craig mentioned, the D11T. It is an extremely expensive piece of equipment. It has a reduced rate. There's a rate when you're operating it, but there's also a rate on that piece of equipment, as every piece of equipment, of what's called an idle time rate. It's still a substantial amount of money. So we have been talking to Sukut about when can we get rid of that piece of equipment, because it's very costly, what makes the most sense. And so that, to answer your question, that's one thing. that can be, closely managed. And, it's one of those things where you don't want to pull it off too soon. The benefit of that piece of equipment is you can get through rock and harder material without having to blast, but you're not exactly sure how some of these areas are going to go, so you make the best educated estimate you can based on the previous work in the area, the previous performance of that machine. So all that's being weighed. So I will tell you all that that's being discussed, multiple times a week, right? When we can get rid of that piece of equipment. So it is, just doing the best we can at managing the situation. And, when you see costs like this, I understand the conclusion that you come to that, well, it's not being managed. Look how expensive it is. It is very expensive, but I do want to tell you, the team is trying to manage it as best they can, manage the costs as best as they can.
Supervisor Stopper?
Not so much a question as a statement. A few things, with these questions and answers. I heard an answer to okay, monthly scheduling is behind all the way to last October 23. So they're trying to catch up now. Billing's behind exponentially, and we're trying to catch up now. And then I heard the answer to Mr. Tofanelli, yes, these things fell off and, top to bottom, there's, it's an issue, but it wouldn't change where we're at today. Well, I have to say BS, because we would have kept track where that billing is. Scheduling would have been there. Now, with management not watching scheduling or billing and not knowing that they're that far behind until recently, how are they tracking and make sure that scheduling and that billing was actually the work that was getting done? If they didn't know that stuff was getting reported. Honestly, closer track of things on time and timely would have made for a more expedient process through managing a project. That's elementary. So I just, that type of answer I can't accept, because it's just not true.
All right. If no further questions, I have a statement and a question. First off, we're acting like some of this is new information or we're, oh my, this has come up. Howard, you and I in this boardroom round and round back in January and February before we started this construction season, and we recognized that the construction management team had not been holding up their side, and we were told it's going to get better. I'm not so sure it's getting better. It's certainly getting more expensive, and we've paid millions of dollars to have this project managed, and it looks like it's not being managed, as I think Supervisor Stopper said, the tail's wagging the dog, and we're being led around. That's a statement, and that's how I feel, and I've told you that in private, and I've told the board that here in public. My question is, in our presentation, we said $53 million. Craig says that's the number. Do you agree? Is that the number?
I do agree. That is the number based on the new, that's the number based on the new dirt cost per day, right, roughing that in. Again, that's I think it's on the conservative side. We've had internal discussions on that, and with both with Unico, with Craig and Robert, about what to share with what to share with the board. We want to paint a realistic picture. Don't want to make it so overly conservative, but look, I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like our estimates have been overly conservative. Obviously, they haven't. There have been There have been things, out of, I think, anyone's control, that combined with the current status of where things are, it makes it even a more bitter pill to swallow. I will say, I do think, I agree with the estimate, to answer the question. The other thing I want to share with the board, to put things into perspective, this is based on, part of this packet, there was, and Craig's statement was, well, we've moved 29,000 cubic yards out of the 90. And so a good question is, well, how is that number calculated? And I want to share with you that that's a rough number. It is not, and it's based on load counts. Very rough, and essentially it's for progress payment purposes only, just monthly estimates. What happens at the end of the project, there'll be a full scan, topo of the whole job, so we'll know the final quantity. But and again, I don't want to give false hope, but that 29,000 number, that could be a little low, right? Because that assumes the inspector and the foreman have counted everything perfectly. You saw the operation, you saw the videos in there with the off-road dump trucks, the articulated trucks. There's, that's not a perfect science. It's basically a rough estimate as you go month to month. So I want to throw that out there, that number is not, it's not a precise number. But I will say, just, I'm rambling on, I do think the 53 million for where we stand now, I think that's, I agree with that estimate.
So you think that number's going to hold? You are a construction manager.
I do think it's
53.
going to hold. I do.
Can I ask something, Mr. Chair?
Of course.
How do you have a load count when you don't have your monthly reports or billing in?
Two different things. The load count, that's done daily. That's done between the inspector and the foreman. Again, that's not all that does is get you in the ballpark.
Okay.
And let's just say this wasn't a force count item, right? It was a typical item. You don't do a topo every month or even every quarter to get a precise quantity. You do an estimate, and that's what the load count method is. It's an estimate. So it's independent of the billings, just to get a rough idea of where you are.
Questions from the board? Other questions from the board? Is there any public comment on this item?
Mr. Chair, just one other comment. It goes back to the budget that we were talking about earlier. I know it's 53 million is the best number that we have. We have right now the best information that's available. But I've also wanted to draw your attention that as far as what money are we drawing down right now, it's all been state. We haven't actually drawn a penny from RIM yet. It's budgeted so that we can have it, but it'll be the last money out the door.
When the billing catches up?
Right, when everything gets squared away.
A year ago?
That if there's savings, it'll be in RIM, if there is.
Other public, go ahead, Ben.
Just curious, without billing, billing's up to what, October 23 right now?
No.
July. Of this year? So they're caught up to billing up to that point?
Some of it are still pay estimates. All of your Unico, Dewberry, Dawkin, their subcontractors, Alta, ESA, those are pretty current. I think I'm missing 2 actual bills for July. Otherwise, we're totally up to date with billed numbers, and period. Then when it comes to Sukut, We have pay estimates up through June, I think it is, for the bid work. And then we have this dirt work that we've been discussing. So that's all been estimates from, April, that'd be from April forward.
With those estimates, how are they accountable to those estimates?
So the estimates are just for budgeting purposes, for purposes of, discussions between Craig and me and the board, of course, so we can know where we're at, because we can't compel Sukut to bill any faster. I haven't seen this before where billings take so long. It's their internal process. We've talked about it and tried to convince them to take different approaches. For whatever reason, they haven't chosen to do that. But the billing, to your point, Supervisor Stopper, I think the October 23, just to clarify, that was in the context of schedule updates, not billing. So the billings are
They're both
complete.
behind, but, the scheduling
Right.
is much farther behind.
Much far, correct. Scheduling is much farther behind. The billings, Sukut's billings are complete through June 20th, excluding the roadway X, right? So roadway X, CCO 60, we have received bills up through May 20th.
Well, just to reiterate, they both seem late, hand in hand, for a very good reason. It's harder to track, and harder to go back and verify, on their end. I know, but, we could debate that all day, but that's my point of view, and I'm not changing it.
All right. So we've had public comment, we've had discussion, we have an item in front of us. I'll call the question.
I have a question, just
Certainly,
take a
Supervisor
four-fifth
Tofanelli.
vote. No, just not a four-fifths vote, correct?
No, there's a split in how jurisdictions handle that.
I'm sorry.
There's a
Just there.
split in how jurisdictions handle that. The law isn't especially clear on the point.
What is your counsel?
Like I said, there's no case on it. I think that there's no budget transfer associated, so it's not certainly a 4/5. And different counties do it as a 3/5, others as a 4/5. There's no clear law.
Okay. I'm looking for a one-armed attorney. So on the other hand, what
I
is
asked
the call?
this question,
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I asked this question earlier. We've already budgeted the amount in our budget.
This item does not include a budget transfer.
It doesn't include a budget transfer.
That's
So
correct.
at that point, as we've used it in the past, it's a 3/5 vote.
Counselor?
That is how we've done it in the past.
Counselor, you agree it's a 3/5 vote?
As best as I can tell, yes.
Okay. Very well. 3/5 vote. Is there a motion?
Wait.
Go ahead, Gary.
I'm sorry, but we haven't transferred this money to the budget. We did a preliminary budget. We've added this money in from RIM since then. We're going in next month for our final budget where all of this is in there. We're going to be voting on this, all of the money that's being transferred in there at that time. It was never presented at preliminary budget. So in that being said, then we are transferring money.
This item I will let the experts speak to the budget pieces, but I can say that this item does not include a budget transfer.
Okay.
It was in preliminary.
Yeah, I got you. Teresa, did you want to add anything?
No, I just wanted to reiterate, council is correct. This item does not include a budget transfer. The funding for this will be part of the final budget.
I thought in the preliminary budget that those funds were encumbered to be used. right? Is that correct?
My understanding for the preliminary budget, the one adopted in June, is it reflects what the board directed at your May 21st meeting, which included that you had you already approved the change order 60, the original, and then you had change order 63, which was the wall.
Okay, so then.
It
if
takes you up
that's-
through the wall.
If that's the scenario, then we didn't encumber those funds. Because this is different than that.
No, I think,
So, now I'm thoroughly confused. Can we punt this to another time?
We'll go with what council says. You don't need a four-fifths vote. How about a 2-2 vote?
That would not carry a motion,
I'm sorry.
any motion.
all right. Madam CEO, do you have something you want to add before we call the vote?
We could bring this back at the next meeting with the budget.
All right. Let's,
The budget is our next meeting, which is 2 weeks away. I would like to do that
That is
myself,
correct.
and then give me a little bit more time to digest some of these numbers and ask some questions of Howard and Craig on defining some of these numbers here, because I'm really concerned about giving them 855 and they just blew through it to 2 million, and now we're giving another 970, and I have very strong feelings about everything on this project, that 970, we got to have something in place, at least to make sure if we give them that 970, they don't blow through that, and then we come back and say, well, you know, we're now at 2 million on that, and there's still 50 cubic yards to move. I just feel uncomfortable right now about it. I need some more discussion with at least Howard and Craig on this particular thing. I met with Craig yesterday in his office, and we kind of went through it a little bit. But
I would support pushing it to the next meeting also, just for the fact that it'll probably be brought back and we'll be doing all this over again anyway.
I agree.
So we'll bring this back, but this will be a separate agenda item, and the budget item will be part of the budget.
That is correct.
Okay, and this is the money that we're talking about. These are the RIM funds that we're talking about transferring, just being real clear.
That is correct. There's no general fund associated with this item at this time.
I think it might be cleanest for the clerk if we had a motion to continue it to the next meeting.
Please, thank you.
Moved by, continuance moved by Supervisor Stoppers, or second?
second.
All in favor of continuing this to our next meeting?
Aye.
Aye. All right, we're going to take a 5-minute break.